Hello Internet. Category here, not with wargame archaeology, but horror game archaeology, as we take a look at issue 15 of Ares magazine and the included Nightmare House game. Now I did order this in hopefully to get a Halloween video out, but this wasn't delivered to me until the 1st of November, so we're going to take a little look at what's in the magazine now, what the game comes with, component-wise, and just a little reminisce on the days of Ares magazine. First of all, though, let me get rid of this tat. Now, Ares magazine was from SPI. This was the science fiction little brother to Strategy and Tactics magazine. Each week looking at various things in the science fiction world, giving a, much like Strategy and Tactics, giving a game in every magazine. And this really was, in my eyes, a golden age. So this was full 1983, so slightly older than me, this magazine, and still in beautiful condition. But it was a wonderful time. So, normal magazine things, you've got the basic bits of news, letters, notes from the editor. But here you've got 2010, the sequel to 2001 had just been released by, or the book had just been released by Arthur C. Clarke. The film hadn't come out yet. And Odyssey 2, although not the absolute classic that 2001 is, it really is an enjoyable bit of science fiction. And you've got a few little letters dropped into the editor. And here we've got some film reviews. And this is what I mean by golden age. They've got a film review of Return of the Jedi, War Games with Matthew Broderick and the star of the show, Whopper, Psycho 2, The Hunger, Something Wicked This Way Comes. There were just brilliant sci-fi and horror films coming out that period of the early 80s. I used to have a very large VHS collection filled with these films, and I'll tell you what, cinema today is not the same. And start looking at the game reviews. So here it's got Starfleet Battles, expansion module number 2. This was still when it was in the 3-volume version, long before the Doomsday Edition, Captain's Edition came out. Striker from GDW. Oh. And we move on to a bit of horror fiction in the name Visitation. You've got advert for StarQuest. This is an early play-by-mail game which you'd get a list of orders you'd have to fill out and you'd send it, and they'd process it with all the other players in their computer and send you back a little report of how your ship was going. In the UK, we had a similar company called KGC Games, and I remember in the mid-90s playing free trials of their play-by-mail games. I'd play the first 3 or 4 turns, I'd pay £10 and get another 5-6 turns on top. But although I really loved it, because I was just a teenager, I was spending all my pocket money on it. I thought I just couldn't keep it going. But I've got a real nostalgia for these computer-run play-by-mail games. And then we're on to the board game itself. Now, I'm not going to go into all the rules. I don't know that much about it in detail, but it's a 2 to 5 player game of ghost hunters trying to exorcise an evil entity or ghost that's haunted this house. And there are 12 different characters the players can choose from. There's only 16 pages of rules. They're illustrated somewhat with not necessarily game examples, but I mean there's counter examples, and there's a little feedback card. But it does give you some detail. But before we go on with the magazine, I'm just going to show you the components of this game, and you'll see how it shines. Starting with the counters, they're really basic 2 colour counters. Well, actually 3 colours, blue, black and white on those ones, but really simple. They're actually, the registration and the cut is real nice for the age of these. Often counters back in those days would be really all over the place. But these look like they'd actually come out quite nice, snipped up. But you've got the black counters which control the entity. You've got the blue power markers Got these mystery tool markers for things you can find around the house, I believe. You've got the soul markers to show the different hunters the state of their spirits. On the reverse, you've got these discovery markers, so you've got what you discover there on the back. The back of these entity markers, you've got the actual surprise horrors you find. All these power markers have got different numbers on the back for, I don't know if that's going to be a chip pull or random placement thing, but no, it's a 200 counters, give or take. But really, these are really simple. But where I think this game really shines and really brings out the theme is the map. I've zoomed up the camera as much as I really can for this, but the game is split into two basic areas. You've got the house itself, which you're travelling around. So you've got the first floor, the second floor, third floor, attic and the tower and a cellar. These are the real life locations where your ghost hunters will be moving around, experiencing things, finding things. But you've also got this astral plane where the demonic supernatural entity that's haunting this house is also having an effect. And so you're not just battling in reality. At points you can cross over to the astral plane and fight it there. And there's kind of a bit of a duality of your physical body is exploring this house and your spiritual body is fighting things on this board. So it's a really, the two systems I think could work really well together. It's a really interesting idea for a horror game, and I'm really, really looking forward to having a little go at it. Although it is ostensibly a multiplayer game, they do give you a small little bit of solitaire play guidance of how you can affect the rules to play differently. Because generally with a two-player game, one person would play as the demonic entity and the other players would play as the hunters, the ghost hunters, the exorcists that are trying to control this thing. Whereas solitaire, you'll be a single hunter against the entity, which you'll be half controlling. But if I can find ways to randomise that, I'll be really happy to. But I mean, just looking at this map, it's a real piece of art. And while horror gaming has come a long way in recent years, mostly with Cthulhu-related titles, to be fair, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this can do to bring back the feeling of films like Poltergeist or Amityville Horror, or even things like the modern series like the Conjuring series. I'm really looking forward to sinking my teeth into this. And back in the magazine, it continues the review section with more game reviews, book reviews, a nice little article about haunted places themselves. I think I've missed a page. And Into the Void. So here's a short science fiction story, but what really tops it off is it's not just the sci-fi story, it's a mini module for the Star Frontiers RPG, which was I believe, off the top of my head, I think it was the TSR Dungeons and Dragons sci-fi game. Although not as long-lasting as Traveller, which was an early sci-fi game, it's got a bit of provenance coming from TSR. So, I mean, it's a little breakdown of a good adventure to have. You've got the maps of various spaceships that you'll be exploring, tied in with some TSR, like I said. Join the D&D game club, or advertising was too much better back then. But yeah, so a good little breakdown of the adventure for this role-playing game. And finally, an advert for the Star Trek role-playing game. So Ares magazine in general, I think, is a really brilliant product from the 80s. It brought all sorts of games to the front. There's a Delta V, which is an interesting spaceship combat game with three-dimensional system which works in an interesting but good way. It brought the BSM Pandora games, which I have played BSM Pandora games, and Voyage of the Pandora is getting a kind of sequel / reboot in the guise of Away Team from GMT Games. That's on the P500. So the games that came in from Ares had a lasting legacy, and I think it's a real shame that it hasn't stood the test of time and didn't survive like Strategy and Tactics did. Strategy and Tactics is wonderful, don't get me wrong. Historical wargaming has a huge following, but there's such a place in the market, I reckon, for a curated, regular science fiction, fantasy, horror game choice. I mean, there are options. There's games being released all the time, and there's places to find them. But something where they're hand-picked for you on a monthly basis, I think it's a gap in the market, and I think it's a real shame that Ares went away. And this magazine, this beautiful map, beautiful sheet of counters, just $6 back in the day. This unpunched 42-yard magazine cost me somewhat more than $6, but I think I am going to have to punch it, and I am going to have to play it, because it seems like an interesting game, and a game that sits in a drawer not being played feels like a game that's wasted its life. So do any of you guys remember Ares magazine, or do you have a favourite horror game which you think I should get onto? Either way, I hope you all had a really good Halloween. I hope you're having lots of fun eating all of your children's candy after trick-or-treating. And until next time, happy gaming!